Welcome back everyone to the second review of Robot Wars Series 1. Now last time was kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to be able to do this back to back with the latest season of BattleBots. You know, getting to see where we are now versus the early days of this sport. It really is a major contrast. But we're not going to waste any more time. Let's get started. And to start things off, man, Jeremy Clarkson's hosting really does feel at odds with literally everything else. I'm really glad that this was a one and done thing with Jeremy, as we really did get a huge upgrade by moving to Craig Charles. Anyway, the robots that came out today were Ugly Bots, which looked like it was made out of paper mache, weighing in at 71.9 kilograms. You had Scrapper, which with those eyes looks horrifying, but otherwise, I can see what they were going for with the machine, given that, we didn't know how effective saws were at the time, that it made a lot of sense. It's weighing in at 76.5 kilograms. Then there's Recyclops, made by the legendary Rex Garrett, who ended up becoming a Robot Combat legend. This robot weighs in at 79.5 kilograms, making the most of what I believe was supposed to be 80 kilogram weight limit at the time. Then you got Detonator, the absolute, just peak robotics right there, weighing in at 52.5 kilograms. Then Mortis coming in at 78.4 kilograms, which Mortis is another robot I really enjoy. If you don't know yet, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Axebots and Hammerbots, and Mortis, given that this is a Series 1 robot, really you can see that it is made out of different stuff. This is a very well-made robot for the time. Then there's Leebot, which also looked actually pretty solid, weighing in at 69 kilograms. Nice. Now, the Gauntlets is about as usual. Leebot is up first. It has a rear saw similar to Roadblock and basically a 4-bar lifter, which, for the time, that's actually pretty good. Robots like Biohazard were absolutely killing the competition with a 4-bar lifter in the States, so Leebot was actually pretty of its time. Now, Leebot does have some issues with the first ramp, and it wasn't helped by Bash holding this ramp up. Though realising its mistake, Bash does end up backing off, allowing Leebot to clear the first ramp, and then, when rising up the second ramp, there's a lot of smoke, I think, from Sergeant Bash's flamethrower, but the 4-bar lifter has a fan on it, which blows away the smoke. It's actually kind of funny, and definitely the best Gauntlet run so far, as they end up finishing it. Scrapper is up next, and while they also struggle with the first ramp, in this case it's seemingly because the caster wheels are causing them to swivel about. It was like the most unruly shopping trolley. But, to take it off tangent, they then cut to, like, they usually cut to, like, a video showcasing the robot, like, at certain points, and they show off Scrapper. They turn the saw blades on at the table? Oh my god. Sorry, I know we're just going on tangent, but the show did the same thing. I was aghast. I heard about how the show was unsafe in the early season, but I forgot just how unsafe. My god. Scrapper decides to go for the maze instead of the ramp after it just struggled a bit too much, and is blocked off by Bash and Shunt, and immediately ends up stuck in the middle of the maze. Shunt runs into them a few times, and Scrapper finishes off at 7.4 meters. Definitely a little riskier distance for them. Then it's Recyclops' turn in the Gauntlet, as they race right out of the gate, and you can tell the machine is a cut above the rest here. It struggles running into Bash, but the moment they get some freedom, they run full pelt into Matilda. Very impressive run, and definitely one of the better engineered robots, as they end up completing the Gauntlet. Next up, it's Detonator's turn, and they immediately get stuck on the turntable. They cannot move. They're done. Sergeant Bash comes over to have a look, and Detonator is finally shoved free by Shunt, who practically has to push them along, as Detonator is struggling to do anything. Suddenly, the moment they're able to move, you can hear what the team member, I believe his name David Crosby, yelling, "Go, go, go, go!" as Detonator moves like an extra meter or two. 7 meters, safe to say that is not a good look for them. Then it was Mortis' turn, and it looked so sleek. Mortis speeds out, only stopping briefly from crashing into the wall. Mortis ends up then crashing into Bash, where Shunt and Matilda come in to fight. Shunt gets a nice shove in with the axe, and Mortis is basically stuck at this point. To be fair, if Shunt let up with the axe, Mortis would have likely completed, but it seems like Shunt actually got the axe tip partially stuck in Mortis, meaning they kept Mortis in place. Still, with a distance of 7.4 meters tying with Scrapper, they are safe. Then it was Uglybot's turn, and Uglybot gets stuck on the turntable as well, but has slightly better luck getting free. It's a shame Shunt decided to absolutely go over the top bullying them. Uglybot really had no hope, as Shunt just ruined any chance they had, as they just pushed them all the way back to the turntable. This went above anything I would have expected. This seems way more aggressive than any of the previous Gauntlet runs. Uglybot's out at only 1.65 meters. Now Uglybot is out, but their team swears they'll be back for the next season. I checked the wiki, they're the only team that didn't return in this heat. Now next up, instead of doing the sumo, they do a game called British Bulldogs. Basically, you know the part of the gauntlet that pretty much all the robots end up doing, where the robots keep running at the house robots, where they make a beeline for the finish? That's the entire game, as all the robots go at once, with all the house robots guarding the finish line. Given how long the gauntlet was, this should help make things a little shorter. The race starts, and Mortis and Recyclops are right out of the gate. They're just racing along. Mortis easily finishes first. Leebot is struggling to get around, while Recyclops meanwhile has an encounter with Matilda. Detonator is struggling due to its own driving issues, unable to turn left or really move that much at all. David can't watch anymore and just walks off. The stress of the situation clearly is getting to him. Scrapper ends up reaching the finish line, weirdly enough, by going backwards. Apparently the robot just drove better that way. Recyclops seemed to have stopped working for a bit. Leebot is just ignored completely. It's just reaching the finish line at its own pace. No one's looking at it. That's probably the best situation you can have in a competition like this. And then Recyclops manages to flip Matilda over. There's some actually decent oomph to the flipper there. That thing, made it look easy. And it's crazy to think that even in Series 1, with how basic a lot of the robots are, that the house robots are still getting bullied. When the Detonator team was interviewed, they explained that the batteries went in the robot, which was a bit of a shame, as it meant there was no guesswork as to who was going to go out here, as Detonator went the least distance. Detonator was eliminated, but now we can get to the fighting. They introduced the judges, and one thing that I didn't note last time is no Sharky, and to the people who are new to Robot Wars, that might not make a lot of sense why I'm bringing such attention to a judge, but Null Sharky would go on to judge every series of Robot Wars, so, you're seeing someone who was there from start to finish. Null Sharky's actually pretty passionate about robotics, so, it's great to see him. Now, the first fight was between Recyclops versus Scrapper, which, given how this was, the fight could only really go one way. Scrapper actually does a little bit of a twirl as Recyclops comes in, and you can tell that Scrapper is trying to dance around, but immediately Recyclops, the moment he gets a shot in, was able to flip Scrapper up and over, ending the match. The way that Recyclops' weapon works is actually semi-unique. It's a front hinge flipper, which we've seen plenty of over the years, but the way that it works is, because it's themed like a tongue, the tongue pokes out and then flips. It's probably not the most practical, but it does give a unique look for Recyclops, and makes the robot a lot of fun. It's always nice to see a flipper, and in a time of no Shremex, Recyclops is lethal. Then there was Leebot versus Mortis. Leebot just doesn't have the ground clearance with that 4-bar lifter. It doesn't go that low to the ground compared to a robot like Biohazard, so you really don't get as much use in it as I would have expected. Mortis then goes denting the armor of Leebot with the hammer, leading to the legendary call by Jonathan Pierce of, "Leebot, pepper pot! You could pour pepper out of that Leebot machine!" Oh my god, Jonathan Pierce, even when these fights are boring, Jonathan Pierce manages to carry it, but this was not a boring fight at all, as it had some good maneuvering from Mortis as they then began shoving Leebot around and actually managed to tip Leebot over, meaning that Mortis was going to move on to the main event. This heat definitely has some much more exciting robots with Mortis and Recyclops absolutely commanding the arena. However, disaster strikes as before the main event, Mortis's hammer was unable to work. This meant that Mortis was just going to become a pretty ineffective wedge bot. Now this is a massive shame, and to me, one of the biggest what-ifs of the season. What could have happened if we got to see a fully working Mortis taking on Recyclops? I don't mean in terms of who would win, I mean in terms of what the brilliant kind of match we could have seen. The fight begins and they both gun for each other, though Mortis ends up having an odd turn that they have to correct for. It seems Mortis' drive isn't working properly either, as Mortis drives around erratically. Recyclops, due to being slower, can't keep up and take advantage even. Mortis ends up impaled on the spikes and is grazed by the chainsaw tail of Matilda, which, that thing never could do much, could it? Mortis finally gets a good push on Recyclops. Recyclops tries to attack, but Mortis gets another ram into the side, where both robots end up stuck on the sidebar, where Shunt takes a few shots. Because they're stuck, it goes to the judges, who end up giving it to Recyclops. Honestly, this was extremely disappointing. These were two of the most entertaining robots of the season, and because Mortis wasn't working properly, the fight massively missed expectations. Overall, this episode was extremely hit and miss. We got some flashes of some fun engineering with Leebot, Mortis and Recyclops, but there was also many moments of disappointments of the robots just not able to perform like expected as things went wrong. A massive shame, and one of the reasons I'm just not a fan of this series of Robot Wars. Still, I hope you were a fan of this episode. Still, I hope you were a fan of this review. If you were, please be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell down below to be notified of future videos on the channel. Also, I want to thank everyone for 2,000 subscribers. My goodness, the growth since about December has been, more than the channel has ever seen. I've always been appreciative of any growth the channel has had, but recently you've all been incredible, really. And I can't thank you all enough for that. It truly does mean the world to me to see how far the channel has come ever since I started it. Anyway, thank you all again, and I'll see you all hopefully next time. Bye, guys!